Holiday Monday, we're here. Welcome to Frontlines, 5 o'clock here on the East Coast. Here are the top 5 stories we didn't want you to miss. How's this cleanup for the streets? Trump says he's open to the government reopening insane asylums. He says that New York used to have them, but now people are just released into society. I happen to agree with him. And here we are on the brink of a national housing emergency potentially. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent says Trump may declare that in the fall. The White House wants to make affordability a key leg of the Republican midterm platform. Bessent says Trump could standardize zoning codes and could exempt some construction materials from tariffs. Plus, speaking of tariffs, Trump says India has offered to reduce the tax on U.S. goods to nothing. This comes just days after Trump put a 50% tariffs on India for buying Russian oil. As I said last week, just talk to Trump. He'll probably work something out with you. And America's Mayor Rudy Giuliani is recovering, thankfully, after being injured in a serious car accident. His spokesman says it happened in New Hampshire Saturday night. Prior to the crash, Giuliani was flagged down by a woman who was a victim of domestic violence, and Giuliani helped her out. And then his car was pulling out back onto the highway, and apparently he was hit from behind. Trump says Rudy Giuliani will get the Medal of Freedom. Plus, the family of Robert Mueller says he has Parkinson's disease. It's led the House committee that's investigating the Jeffrey Epstein case to withdraw the subpoena from the former FBI director to testify. Okay. But first, blue cities say they don't need any help. They do. Let's do this. Okay, so 53 shot, 7 killed just this weekend in Chicago to date. Don't worry, I'm sure something else will happen tonight too, but that's almost double. You had the exact same weekend last year, so don't tell me the situation's getting better in the same place that says they don't need help. Yeah, okay, sure seems like you do.
We do not want to see tanks in our streets. We do not want to see families ripped apart. We do not want grandmothers thrown into the back of unmarked vans. We don't want to see homeless Chicagoans harassed or disappeared by federal agents. We don't want to see Chicagoans arrested for sitting on their porch. That's not who we are as a city, and that's not who we are as a nation.
Well, look, the reason you got here is because law enforcement is not who you are as a city. Not a knock on the cops. You just don't let them do their job. You don't enforce anything, and you let the courts let the criminals back out onto the street. By the way, tanks in the street, dude, it's not Fallujah. Chicago is more deadly than Fallujah when I was there, but they are not going to roll tanks down the street, mostly because it would tear up the street. They're not ripping families apart. Unless they committed crimes, then no matter who you are, what color your skin is, if you don't get to take your kids to jail with you. That's the separation that happens. That's what they're talking about. They're not disappearing homeless people, not like Gavin Newsom did when he cleaned up the streets of San Francisco for the president of China when he visited. He straight up loaded homeless people onto buses and shipped them to Timbuktu. Who knows where they went? People are not just randomly being harassed on their porch either. Unless law enforcement has a warrant, which is in fact happening a lot. Many of those warrants have been around for years now, but you guys just don't enforce them. But also because all you have to do is enforce the laws, and this crime will largely stop, which you haven't done. But instead, for the last few years, you've just justified lawlessness. Even today, you've got Randi Weingarten jumping up and down, talking about federal troops when she should actually be worried about the fact that only 31% of 8th graders are proficient in reading, and only 26% are proficient in math in Chicago. Maybe she should have a rally about that. And Brendan Johnson even saying this.
No federal troops in the city of Chicago. No militarized force in the city of Chicago. We're going to defend our democracy in the city of Chicago.
In fact, you've called to defund the police and blame the problem on mythical things.
You're calling to defund the police. Explain that.
Yeah, what we're seeing is obviously an outbreak of incredible frustration and anguish that communities that have been isolated through poverty over generations. And what we have is sort of a typical, very standard, quite frankly, a very tired response to the regularly scheduled pandemic, which is structural racism.
And that right there is why you have such a... There is no structural racism, especially not in Chicago. It's so much not a problem in Chicago that Jussie Smollett had to fake a hate crime for himself. But you do have a crime problem. But you want to talk about structural racism, you are a black mayor of a city with 35% of your appointed staff are black, only 30% appointees are white, with 35% of the municipal workforce black, in a city with a police force comprised of 20% black officers, 7 points higher than the 13% black population of the nation, with a city council that is 40% black, with 42% of the congressmen in your city limits being black, in a city that raised a black senator that went on to become the first black president, well, half black. Tell me more about systemic racism, please, Brendan. Or do you want to have a real conversation that you have essentially ignored majority black communities and allowed this problem to get way out of hand like you have? Like, is this you at a defund the police rally? I mean, it's interesting. You won't say that even recently.
Do you believe that the streets of Chicago would be safer if there were more uniformed police officers on the streets?
I believe the city of Chicago and cities across America would be safer if we actually had, affordable housing.
Is not what he asked. Can't even answer the question because he can't, or it will be exposed that he knows that. I mean, like, unbelievable. Like, which is why this weekend, all of a sudden, he just came out and was like, whoa, the great men and they just praise cops.
Our police department has worked incredibly hard to drive down violence in the city of Chicago.
Okay. Trump is actually single-handedly killing the defund the police movement. I said this when he brought all the troops to D.C. I said, watch, this is going to work. And then there's going to be no way out for these libs. He made Baltimore support the federal government coming in to help them, too. Gavin Newsom, like overnight when he saw this was polling well, added more police resources.
We're going to be expanding this operation, building on the success that is now included over 9,000 arrests statewide. We're going to expand this operation in a collaborative that continues to include the cities and counties, our partners in the sheriff's office and local law enforcement agencies. We continue as well to work with the federal partners.
Nobody is buying it. And now he's trying to make Donald Trump out to be the defund the police guy. If you can imagine, I mean, look, he's tweeting out that he said Trump is the defund. Okay. They know people want to be safe, and they see what Trump is doing in D.C., and Pritzker is actually in so much of a panic that he accidentally, I think, said the quiet part out loud.
This is a part of his plan to do something really nefarious, which is to interfere with elections in 2026.
You're darn right it will affect elections. People will be like, Democrats have been running this city, this state, or whatever for 50 years, and 50 people get shot every weekend. Trump comes in and overnight we have 0 murders. Like, people are going to be like, sign me up for that. And they won't elect another Democrat ever. Hopefully. This is why the 5 states people regret moving to the most are all Democrat-run states. One of the top states, Illinois itself. California, Connecticut, my home state of Connecticut, New York, New Jersey. You got high taxes, which every government's justification for paying those or charging those taxes are like, oh, we need roads, we need bridges, and cops. You ever driven on the roads in New York and Chicago? They're a disaster. You don't have good roads, and for God's sake, if you ever drive across the George Washington Bridge, it basically looks like a less rusty version of the Titanic, and you're certainly not safe in any of those places. So to counter this narrative, you have to laugh at the left for trying to make these cities seem safe and crime not a big deal when 50 people are killed. Brian Krasenstein, again, I love this guy for the number of liberal self-owns that he has. He's like 3.5 feet tall, too. He said, quote, in beautiful Chicago with my beautiful wife, perfectly safe, perfectly great. Only snowflakes think this city has a problem. You just can't make this up. Look at this. This is the Chicago crime map. You see where that arrow is pointing right there? Okay, to that beam that he took that picture in front of. That was where Brian was standing. He was staying right there. He was spending his time there. it is the lowest crime area. Like, it's the lowest crime block of all of Chicago. Okay, didn't dare going down to the south part of the city in the midnight. No. He preferred to stay at Navy Pier, where there's like, you can even see police officers in the background. It is unreal. He wants us to buy that. But this is what we're up against. And this is why it's so vital to send in the troops, because Democrats, they're going to say they're doing something and then maybe even clean up a little bit, just enough to give the perception that they're doing something until the next election. Wendy Bell, host of Wendy Bell Common Sense and the Wendy Bell Radio. All right, so I look at this, Wendy, and I'm like, just send it and be done with it.
Yeah, you know what? I think that when the president says he's not going to send in the National Guard, he's going to send in ICE, right? He's sending a message. We're here to clean up illegal aliens. We're probably going to catch a lot of other bad guys in the process. And he's forced the Democrats into a corner. They now have to be on the 1% side of people who say that crime's not a problem.
Right.
It's an idiotic position to be in. And I will say Trump masterfully has gotten them to defend the indefensible, and supporting crime is just one of the many, Carl,
right.
And you know this.
99-1, I think it is. But you just mentioned illegal immigration.
Right.
Like, here's an idea. Illinois spent $2.5 billion by the end of this year. That's the estimate for 2025. All right, this is the equivalent to confiscating the salaries. I'm talking, not taxes. Take 100% of the salaries of 40,000 residents in your state, because the median income is like $60-something thousand. 40,000. Take all their money, and that's what it's spent on illegal immigrants.
Well, and the brilliant part of all of this is, of course, is that all of the people in the city of Chicago, and a lot of them are black, who showed up to the city council meeting, who showed up when Mayor Brendan Johnson decided to squawk about this and that, called him out on that. He shut them down, told them that even they were racist for talking about such things. This guy is a low IQ individual who does what liberal Democrats and the progressive fringe of this party is doing, and it's putting their eggs in all of the wrong baskets. And they know 2026 is right around the corner, Carl, and it ain't looking good.
No, it's not. I mean, like you said, they're on the wrong side of 99-1 issues. But take a look at this. According to the Crime Prevention Resource Center, okay? The percentage of mass shootings here, this is like a state and a city that doesn't want you to have guns, okay? So 48%, think about this, 48% of mass shootings ended with armed civilians in 2024, okay? The Biden administration reported 0% of that as such on its face. If you think about that, half of would-be mass shootings were stopped by civilians. And you have places like Chicago, Illinois, where it's totally almost borderline illegal to get a permit. But yet all the criminals have guns.
Well, and the crazy thing is that particular study was fascinating because it showed civilians who are armed have something like a 3% chance of being shot and killed when they engage an active shooter. Police, on the other hand, it's almost 17%. It's not a diss on the police. It's a circumstance sort of a thing. The more good guys are out there with guns, the less the bad guys who've gotten away with literal murder are going to think twice before they pull.
Yeah, no, it's great. It's like all these people are saying, well, you have a less likelihood of getting struck by lightning than, needing a gun I was like, I hope that's true. But in my life personally, I've been struck by lightning. I've had a near shark attack, and I've had plenty of other things. Like, I'm going to carry a gun and be safe if I could.
100%. Well, the whole point, is to disarm us so that there is no defense.
Yeah.
Because when we don't have the guns, you know darn well what happens, Carl. You've served, and God bless you for that.
Right, yeah. And I have found that there's only two things in life that if you need and don't have, you will never need anything again. That's a gun and a parachute. Real quick, I want to go to DHS Secretary Kristi Noem. She went on CBS this weekend to talk about the less favorite criminal, okay? Kilmar Abrego Garcia. Listen to the part that they cut out of the interview for air. Roll it.
The one thing that we will continue to do is to make sure that he doesn't walk free in the United States of America. This individual was a known human smuggler, a MS-13 gang member, an individual who was a wife beater, and someone who was so perverted that he solicited nude photos from minors, and even his fellow human traffickers told him to knock it off. He was so sick in what he was doing and how he was treating small children. So he needs to never be in the United States of America, and our administration is making sure we're doing all that we can to bring him to justice.
Wendy, they cut that part out, though.
Oh, you mean all the important part about him being a criminal, illegal alien, gang-banging, wife-beating human trafficker who's into pedo crap, you know what? And Kristi Noem's the one who called him out on X. It's brilliant. The turnaround time for the garbage is getting very small now. And by the way, Trump's comms team cannot be beaten. Democrats know their toes.
Yeah, I know, exactly. Well, other than, being an MS-13 gang-banging criminal with, all these wife-beating allegations and convictions and restraining orders, I'm sure he's a nice guy. Wendy Bell, pleasure.
Always, Carl. Thank you.
All right, coming up, Greta Thunberg. She's back in it. She's got a trip to Gaza. It's not really going as planned on a tugboat. I wonder if she blames this on climate change. But first, FOIA documents into Lisa Cook's tenure as a professor at Michigan State University, proving just how unqualified and misleading her resume was and how she should be fired from the Fed. Well, it looks like Lisa Cook is officially cooked. Independent investigative journalist Chris Brunet obtained Lisa Cook's 85-page tenure package via Freedom of Information Act. And boy, there were some bombshells in here. Let me give you some of the context. Before she was appointed to the Federal Reserve back in 2022, Lisa Cook was a professor at Michigan State University, where she taught economics and international relations. No deliverables for either of those, by the way. Now, when Biden nominated her in 2022, there was a lot of pushback on her resume and how qualified she was as a professor, saying, quote, critics, including some in the Senate, say that she is not qualified for such an important job and has mischaracterized her economics experience. As a senior Republican Senate aide who requested anonymity because they are not authorized to speak on the Republican strategy, told the Daily Caller that Cook is one of the least qualified nominees in the Fed's history. The aide stressed that Cook's scholarship has no connection to monetary economics or the Fed's dual mandate. She went so far as to calling herself, quote, this is Cook, a macroeconomics economist. She used her career to teach the, quote, intersectionality of black people in the economy, whatever that means. But when people started looking into the self-proclaimed macroeconomist in 2022, reporters found out, namely my next guest, that her published work doesn't show any peer-reviewed macroeconomic publications. Well, the man who uncovered all this about Lisa Cook years ago, Chris Brunet, investigative journalist, and you have a Substack, which is fantastic. All right, dude, I'm looking at this stuff. I'm like, you found this out in 2022. Nobody really picked it up, and now it's all coming back up, and it's like, wow, how did she get there in the first place?
Right. Well, I have been on the Lisa Cook beat longer than literally any other reporter in the world. The reason is because before I worked as an investigative journalist, I worked as an economist. So I was actually in the economics world, and I spoke to economists, and I knew what economists thought of her. And the general opinion in the profession was that she was a fraud, she was an intellectual lightweight, and she was the DEI charity case. So that's really what started me digging around into her record back in 2022. Nobody really cared at the time, even though there was a Senate Banking Committee, but it was mostly just me looking around. And eventually I obtained the 85-page document that proves what I was saying all along, that she's not qualified even by the standards of her own department.
Right. Well, that was actually, you published all these documents just openly, and I want to point people to the page on your Substack where they can find this stuff later, but you said that Michigan State's economics department likely voted against tenure, but they were overturned by the dean. You said in a lengthy piece that she was not even good enough to be tenured at Michigan based on merit, yet somehow she's Fed board member material?
Right, that's kind of the whole problem with her not being qualified. If she were an Asian man, for example, she would not have received tenure at a top 200 or top 300 school. but because she's a black woman, she received tenure at a top 30 school, which is Michigan State University. And the reason she even got tenure at Michigan State in the first place, as my documents show, is that her own department voted against granting her tenure. They checked a box that says "Do not reappoint" by the department chair, but that "Do not reappoint" recommendation was overruled by the dean of the College of Social Science due to DEI reasons.
I mean, she doesn't exactly look. I mean, like her tenure packet lists her economic review papers and proceedings as like with an asterisk indicating that it's peer reviewed, but she was lying. I mean, lying about having something peer reviewed is worse than plagiarism.
Right. This is a trend that I've seen with Lisa Cook. Throughout her entire career, she lies on her resume to make it look better because it's so thin. And so that was one example. She portrayed her American Economic Review paper as peer-reviewed when really it was just a short policy paper that wasn't peer-reviewed.
Right.
And she explicitly said it was peer-reviewed. And when she was nominated in 2022, she edited her own website to remove the words peer-reviewed from it because she knew there would be scrutiny. But the Wayback Machine shows that for years her website said this is a peer-reviewed paper.
Unbelievable. Where can people find all these? Like this thing you sent me, the link. Unbelievable amount. Where do people find that?
Right now, it's my pinned tweet.
Okay.
So my Twitter account is at Chris Brunet, and I put out the whole document. You can just download the document there from Twitter.
Yeah.
And what it shows, it's first it shows that her own department voted against her. It shows that she inflated her resume. And it shows several other things, including that she wasn't granted tenure. The reason they used, even though they tell us now like she's some genius researcher, but they granted her tenure based on her teaching record because her research record was not strong enough.
It's actually unbelievable. I want to point people, it's Chris Brunet, Brunet. It really, to me, I mean, great work. I wish we had picked up on this before she was appointed, but she's fired now. So, Chris, we very much appreciate you coming on.
Thanks for having me.
All right. Stay at it, brother. Coming up, Trump goes off the grid for like a minute and a half, and the left goes insane. The same left who voted for Biden and the man who spent like 40 days at a time off the camera. Unbelievable. In our Culture Clash next. Now, Trump decides to like take a few days. I think it's one day off, and the world freaks out. Okay, even some spreading rumors that he died. The guy just wanted to be left alone and play a little golf. He shut down any rumors on Truth Social, saying, "Never felt better in my life." Like, Trump is more publicly available than any president in the history of ever, and he gets backlash for everything. Meanwhile, Biden would go missing for like 5 days. We'd have no idea where he was, and he would get praised that he was never working. All he did was nap and eat and sleep and eat ice cream and all that. Like, people wanted him for 4 more years. I mean, unbelievable. Luke Ball, CEO of Compass Strategies, Matt Palumbo, author of The Air. Luke, I mean, whatever.
We don't give the left a lot of credit, Carl, for the obscure and random conspiracy theories that they have come up with over the last few years. We have to give them some credit between the Russia hoax and Trump being intimately involved with the Epstein case and this situation here. When we had a Roomba for a president previously, as I've heard many other commentators put it, and now that we actually have radical transparency in this administration and a president that puts himself out in the public every single day, if he goes away for like a couple of hours to play golf, the world seems to blow up.
I know. And Matt, the other thing, too, is these people get everything wrong. And then somebody who gets something wrong all the time, including those glasses, Rosie O'Donnell, she called the Minneapolis church shooter a Republican MAGA person. She's now apologized. Roll this, please.
I did not do my due diligence before I made that emotional statement. And I said things about the shooter that were incorrect. I assumed, like most shooters, they followed a standard MO and had standard, feelings of NRA-loving kind of gun people. Anyway, The truth is, I messed up, and when you mess up, you fess up. I'm sorry. This is my apology video, and I hope it's enough.
When is she going to apologize? Because actually, Democrat shooters are significantly more affiliated with the Democrat Party than they are the NRA.
Well, I don't think there's ever been an NRA shooter. I mean, there is almost an inverse correlation between how into guns you are ideologically and your likelihood to commit a crime with a gun. I mean, all the gang members that are committing crimes with guns are not these Second Amendment absolutists. They are people who are abusing it. And the reason we knew the shooter was not right-wing the second it happened was they shot up a mass. A right-wing shooter would not choose that target. And the shooter himself, and we should clarify, it is a him, despite claiming to be transgender, said that he regretted brainwashing himself with gender ideology and destroying his brain with drugs. So it's pretty clear there.
Yeah, and his mom wants us, while she's being questioned by police for apparently facilitating to this to some degree, wants us to respect his pronouns. So just want to throw that out, which I won't be doing. All right, so Luke,
no thanks.
The thing that Democrats say never happened actually happened again. A federal grand jury has indicted a Canadian citizen for allegedly voting illegally in North Carolina for the past 20 years.
Wonder who they voted for, Carl. I'd be interested to look into that part too. But the fact is that the left can scream all the time that any efforts to try to secure our elections are based on conspiracy theories. They're based off of unfounded evidence. But because they have that sort of narrative, anytime that we even try to do the most routine of maintenance to secure our elections, they spin out of control. And we can find examples like this over and over again. So I would continue to push my friends on the left, the few of them I have, maybe be reasonable about election integrity. It's something we can all get behind.
Yeah, and we should
probably...
What's up, Matt?
Sorry, I would add on there, too, that there are a lot of states that have automatic voter registration when you get a driver's license. And there are a lot of states where you can get a driver's license as an illegal alien. So, you know, what do we think is going to happen there? There's a study by a think tank called Just Facts that estimated that up to 25% of illegals could be registered to vote, which is 7.5 million people if you take the high-end estimate for illegal aliens in this country.
That's insane. And also the fact that California auto-mails mail-in ballots to basically everyone. All right, so real quick, Luke, the members of the House Oversight Committee, they're going to be meeting privately with some of the Epstein victims. They're also giving the Epstein victims are giving this press conference soon. Hopefully, we'll start to find out something, because like maybe a deeper dive too. Epstein was he was emailing with the former Prime Minister of Israel to get into the tech industry. Let's not forget, some of those leaked emails that came out a few years ago showed that he planned, the former Prime Minister planned to go to Epstein Island, quote, without security details. Stack this on top of the fact that former president of Harvard met with Epstein multiple times. Like, if it concerns Americans, like, we should probably know about this stuff.
Put out all of the information that is truth, because when the president was going on the campaign trail, he promised over and over again that we would put out the truth about the Epstein files. And now as we move forward to figure out, like, wait, did somebody in a previous administration actually put things in here and make a Steele dossier with some truth, some false in this Epstein files? So the president wants that information out there. I hope the Oversight Committee puts that out there and doesn't throw more conspiracy theories in with the Epstein files.
Yeah. Wouldn't that be something? Well, Luke Ball, Matt Palumbo, appreciate it.
Thank y'all.
All right, coming up, Congress is back in session with a simple first task: prevent the government from shutting down. Should be easy, right? Next. All right, well, Congress is back from their month-long vacation August recess while the rest of America was, like working hard. Our leaders were off. 31 days. Unbelievable. But now it's time for reality. Just a few weeks, the fiscal year will end on September 30th, and the threat of a government shutdown is bigger than ever right now. Congress is going to have to pass a new budget or work with Democrats to pass an extension. And just to make matters more tricky, Trump is also moving to cut nearly $5 billion in foreign aid that was already approved by Congress. Just going to go ahead and call this one. But I bet because they don't ever make their timeline, that we're probably going to get another continuing resolution, but whatever. Jeff Lord, columnist at the American Spectator and former Reagan White House advisor. Jeff, every time it's like I get this stupid CR, which continues on and continues on. Why can they never pass a budget?
This is what they are. A few years ago, when I was young and was a young staffer on the House Budget Committee for a Pennsylvania congressman.
A few years ago,
and what? Yeah. So this is when I first became aware of this this trick, if you will. This is what they do. If they think they're not going to get their way, they shut down the government.
I think they should shut it down and leave it shut down forever, by the way.
Yeah. And one of my favorite tales of this was August of 1981, and it wasn't Congress per se, it was the air traffic controllers.
Yep.
And they threatened to strike if they didn't get their way. And everybody said to President Reagan, he said, well, if you do that, I'll fire you. And everybody said to him in Washington, oh, you can't do that. You can't fire them. And he went out into the Rose Garden and said, if you do this, I will fire you tomorrow, or whatever it was. They finally got the deal. They didn't do it at the very last minute. What really came out of that, which was very interesting, who was watching that? The Soviet Union. And they thought to themselves, we found this out later, uh-oh, this guy means what he says.
Yep.
We better be very careful in dealing with him. And they were. And of course, today there's no more Soviet Union.
Right. But the other thing, Jeff, is like we see this all the time where they're like, oh, we can't get it. We've been working. Like this deadline, it's not like they don't see it coming. It comes around every single year and they never make it. It's like, guys, get your act together and pass something. Stop continuing resolutionizing.
That's the thing. That's the thing that just gets me is it's not as if we've never been here before. We have been here before over and over and over again, and they keep doing the same thing. And the thing that frustrates me is old members of Congress will disappear, new members of Congress will arrive, and the same thing happens all over again. So it's a problem.
I want to get your take on something. Trump's he's doing this EO on executive order on voting, okay? Voter ID, mandatory executive order. And this is what I love about Trump. He's just sometimes like, you know what? The heck with it. I'm just going to do it. And if the courts strike, I mean, this is what Democrats have been doing for the last 40 years. So, like, I'm here for this. He says voter ID must be a part of every single vote. No exceptions. I agree. It's going to get challenged, but what say you?
Yeah, I think that is a great thing. You know, Carl, the simplest thing, you and I and 99% of your audience drive a car. We all have to have a driver's license to do that. Now, if we have to have a driver's license to get behind a motor vehicle, you would think there's nothing wrong with having a license, a voter ID card to go cast your vote, which is one of the most important things we can possibly do in a democracy. But we seem not to be able to get our act together on this.
Yeah, I mean, but like, what's the the challenge here? I mean, let's be honest, okay? You know, I think Trump should sign an executive order saying, you know what, the Second Amendment is everyone's carry permit, full 50-state reciprocity, constitutional carry. You don't like it, move to Canada. And let them challenge it. Let them try. Because, like, look, we have these federal laws. The Congress does have some right to mandate anything for federal elections, so like for Congress and president. Do they have a case to challenge it? Will it get struck down? But in the genius Trump way, will this stimulate enough national debate for Congress to actually pass a national voter ID?
Well, you see, that's what I think is the president's genius with all of this kind of thing. He will take on things that other people won't do. They'll tell him, oh, you can't do this, you can't do that. He does it. He does it specifically to force debate on the whole issue. And if need be, court cases. He is willing to do that, and God bless him for doing it, because that can work in the end, but you've got to try something. You can't just sit there.
Yeah, exactly. That's why we should have national reciprocity by executive order. See what happens. Jeff Lord, my man, always a pleasure.
All right, my friend, thank you.
All right, coming up, Greta Thunberg, the worst person in the world. She's all smiles as she tries to leave for Gaza. She's bringing like a suitcase of aid, but Israel isn't going to be as nice to her as they were last time, which is awesome. Next. All right, Greta Thunberg is trying again to bring aid to Gaza on a tugboat. Last time she was intercepted by Israel, and then they deported her in the middle seat in the back of the plane. This time, though, she had to turn around because of weather. I mean, like the captain didn't check the weather. Why does she look like a medieval squire right now? But Look, I hope Greta makes it to Israel this time, or to Gaza, or wherever she's going, because a top Israeli official wants to put them in prisons designated for terrorists that does not have television or radio or specialized food. She can't bring her iPhone to FaceTime it or book it or whatever the heck she does. Greta thinks Israel is not giving any aid to Gaza, but like, I was there. I saw the aid trucks going into Gaza like less than a month ago. So this is Egypt, and we're also on the border of Gaza. And as you can see here, there's hundreds of trucks of aid waiting to go into Gaza to provide food and resources. There's actually so much food here that they're dumping some of it along the sides as things break when they're trying to transfer it in, so much so that there's flies buzzing everywhere around here. So it's a complete lie that there's no aid going into Gaza whatsoever. It's actually so much that they can't even get it in there fast enough. So we've been here about 10 minutes, and we've seen nothing but trucks going in and out, some coming from Israel, some coming from Egypt, and constant going in and out. Empty ones coming out, full ones going in. Dozens of trucks every couple minutes. The myth that the aid's not going in, it's not getting there, is garbage. Tony Kinnett, national correspondent for the Daily Signal. Patrick Dornson, the Common Sense Cowboy. Patrick, look, I don't really, personally, don't really care that much about Gaza anymore, but you can't lie about it and get away with it.
No, you can't. And who knew the Palestinians had a navy and they had an admiral named Greta Thunberg? Boy, that's kind of neat. You know, she's going to bring all this aid to Palestine.
Yeah.
Look, let's be honest about something. Put that Gaza issue aside for a minute. How much longer do we have to listen to this grifter, Greta Thunberg, who goes from issue to issue trying to keep her face in the news? I mean, she's such a grifter. She ought to get adopted by the Clintons, and then they can put her to work at the Clinton Global Initiative being a professional grifter and maybe get paid for it.
Yeah, like Chelsea, it was like $800,000 a year, I think,
yeah,
with no experience. All right, so Tony, the U.S. is also suspending visas for Palestinian passport holders. I didn't even know there was a Palestinian passport. I figured it was like actual real countries like Jordan or, whatever in the area. But turns out there is a Palestinian Authority passport. I don't know if it's real, but, they're like, hey, get out.
I mean, I'm just surprised that the passports don't just read France, considering what the country's fallen into these days. So, again, we can ban passports from France, too, Trump. That'd be really excellent. And, again, Carl, I was just north of you on the other side of the Gaza border while you were there, and I noticed the same stuff. And I haven't exactly seen a lot of kind, warm, friendly faces who would allegedly be carrying these passports. They seem to be the kind of people that, well, according to the photos, have certain vests that go boom when they lift.
Yeah. Weird, huh? It's strange. All right, so there's this woman in the UK, Patrick. She was arrested for trying to fly, the flag on a council building, okay? The British flag, all right? And they said she was arrested for disorderly conduct. Well, I sure as hell would be disorderly if they told me I couldn't fly the American flag in America.
I know she's trying to fly the Union Jack, which is one of the most unique symbols in the whole world. Look, the last successful invasion of Great Britain was in the year 1066 by William the Conqueror, when the Normans invaded and kicked out the Anglo-Saxons. Mm-hmm. So look, what's going on in Britain, it's been going on for at least a decade, is a Muslim invasion.
Correct.
Let's call it what it is. And the British people are finally rising up and flying the cross of St. George and the Union Jack and saying, we're not going to put up with this stuff anymore. And guess what else they're doing? Yeah. They're saying, we're going to make England English again, just like we're trying to make America great again. We ought to be supporting them all we can.
Yeah. Well, and Tony, also, what was crazy is over the weekend, there was another huge protest in the penal colony of UK, which is Australia, against immigration. And look, I'm watching these guys march through the Australian flag. I mean, these are people who are proud of their country, and you have violent Muslim extremists sitting there freaking out. You have these wackadoo liberals, the same people who wanted to lock people away. I mean, this is like unbelievable. Listen to what this one person had to say.
I'm an 8th-generation Australian, and I'm here because I'm tired of my government. I want my government that's weak out of Parliament so we can get a strong Aussie with an Australian backbone in to stand up for Australia.
I mean, people all over the world are sick and tired of the fact that you can't say I love bacon and not get arrested like in Great Britain.
You know, I just happen to remember all of the sniveling Great British and Australian, nobility saying, oh, you uncouth Americans and your firearms, how do you need those? Well, it turns out that my guns, in the numerous amount that they are, including the Sten Mark IIs of which I built myself, they're to protect against the kind of crap that now you poor little Brits and Aussie twaddles have to live under because of your own stupid decisions. And, you wouldn't have to worry about waving your own flag if you were carrying an H&K VP9 or 1911 right next to you. God bless the United States.
Yeah, exactly. That's the other thing, Patrick, real quick. Great Britain just loves to start revolutions.
Yeah, well, they're pretty good at it, and as their descendants, we're excellent at it. But
we're
look,
excellent at winning.
Again,
yeah.
And Tony just said it. This is a fight for Western civilization, and we finally, whether it's in Ireland, England, or Australia, we're finally getting up on our hind legs and barking a little bit.
Yep.
Now, if we put a little bite with that bark, we'll be a lot better off.
Yeah. Tony, Patrick, pleasure.
Take care, Carl.
All right, before we go, Judge Sparkle sprinkles magic on the Trump agenda. More on that, weirdly, next. Somehow these types of people get appointed. Judge, this is her real name, Sparkle Sukananen, or whatever, blocked deportation flights that would have sent hundreds of Guatemalan children back to where they came from. Okay, she said, quote, I have the government attempting to remove minor children from the country where in the wee hours of the morning on a holiday weekend, which is surprising, but here we are. Okay, here's what really happened. There's around 600 children. Now, I would think, and look, they contacted every single one of their parents or guardians. Now, I would think they would much rather be returned to their duly noted parents and legal guardians than be in the custody of the Department of Health and Human Services, that Office of Refugee Resettlement. I mean, they're celebrating Labor Day, so it's not exactly fully staffed. But whatever, I guess Judge Sparkle thought that. I can't believe that's her name. Even the parents of these children want them back in Guatemala, according to the Justice Department attorney Drew Ensign. During the hearing, he said, quote, all these children have parents and guardians in Guatemala who have requested their return. But no, Judge Sparkle wants them to stay here. Also, this seems like a nationwide injunction on cases that are not entirely in front of her. Didn't the Supreme Court say you couldn't do that? I mean, it's like unbelievable. Meantime, who could forget this speech? By the way, folks, this is what we dealt with for 3 years, and that's how Judge Sparkle got nominated, is because people like this. 3 years ago today was that soul of the nation speak, the red MAGA, Biden hates Trump supporters. They're a threat to democracy with the Marines in the background. Unbelievable. This is what we deal with. Anyway, appreciate you sticking around tonight, folks. Same time, same place. We will see you tomorrow right back here. Greta's next. Someone's in for her.